Oyo State has been marked as one of the battleground states going into this election. The pre-election violence in some cases and the dynamics and intrigues that played out before now. Pretty much, of course, most of the places we went to or where we set up this morning to do the live crossings, materials, INEC officials and everything started quite early. Then we moved from Ibadan North local government to Onara to so many other places, and from point A to point B we noticed that, of course, much of the fears that a lot of people had before the election, that there could be an outbreak of violence, all of that did not quite happen, which was the good part of the entire story, because again we also moved with the police formation at some point, and we asked the commissioner of police some questions about, okay, what are they getting from the odd deaths in the state. He said most of the cases that they had were minor cases, so there was no cause for alarm. And at some point as well, we spoke to the resident electoral commissioner, who also assured us that they got information from the men and women on the field that the beavers worked optimally, and of course you and I know that that's a precursor to the IREV, that if that works quite well, there shouldn't be any problem uploading the results. So now talking about the results, in my background you can see we are at the Collation Center, and again if we had to make that reference to the presidential election, this is the final collation of the result, because these are state elections, and at this point whatever is done here is final. Once they're done collating, whoever emerges will be declared the winner at this point. So in Oyo State, 33 local governments, and that is what we'll be dealing with. So earlier before now, the entire room was filled up with a whole lot of people, political party members, journalists, and so many people who would have been involved in the entire process. But the INEC in Oyo came with the announcement that this process would not start until 9 a.m. Tomorrow. So that is why we have almost an empty room right now, because people are still setting up, so that when the process starts tomorrow, they get on with it. Kayode.
Well, I know all eyes is on Oyo State, really. As you said, the incumbents are seeking re-election. We saw how the voters voted during the presidential election, and definitely Nigerians will be waiting to see if yet another record will be broken. We know that during the previous administration, that record was broken, and it'll be interesting to see just how it will swing this time around. But I know that, yes, Oyo State is a battleground politically, but in terms of the security, tell us, did you see, or at least hear about any issues regarding security in Oyo State, and what was the response like from the security operatives? Because, I mean, yes, the deployment of materials is quite important, but a lot rises and falls on the security.
Of course, coming into this election, there were a lot of fears. People who had, because of the pre-election violence, the political atmosphere was quite intense, a whole lot of back and forth from the political parties. So I think to an extent, the effect would then be a bit of political apathy, because a lot of people also mentioned that election observers felt that the turnout in the presidential election, especially in Oyo State, is not the same as in the case of the governorship election. Okay, so from everywhere we went to today, and from the question we asked observers, security agencies, they said there was no serious case of breach of the process. So, and they said in cases where they got information, or places where they got information, they were able to nip those cases in the bud. So, and from what we observe as well, people just came out, went through the process. It was almost a seamless one because, again, some of the things that would have caused a bit of apprehension would be if they notice any thing that would not guarantee transparency. So the beavers walked, polls opened at 8:30, closed at 2:30 in most places we went to. So most of the voters and the votes were counted right in their presence. They used the beavers to take the pictures and all of that, upload in cases where they were able to do it. And in most of those cases, places we went to, we did not notice any kind of security breach. So it's I can say, I mean, from all the places we covered and from our observation, even to the police and other security agencies that we spoke to, that the security arrangement was, to an extent, worked, Kayode.
Dari, it seems the stage was set in the best way, possible. Like you said, in all of the places you went to, security was, top notch. It was on point. It seems INEC as well, also were pretty much very prepared. But what was the turnout like?
Okay, so for the turnout, I think the best you can do, because again, it's not like we have the statistics just yet to be able to give you something very concrete at this point. But the best thing we can say about the turnout is, for instance, where we covered in the morning is a super rack. Ordinarily, a super rack can have 2-3 polling units, and that particular polling units had that particular center had 3 polling units. They said during the presidential election, that particular super rack was very busy up until 2:30. People were still trooping in to vote. But today, polls closed in most of those places. People were not walking in at that point. So then again, the electoral officials had to strike out a lot of unused ballot papers. I mean, if those if we can use that as the indicators to say that, okay, maybe the turnout weren't as impressive as it should be. But again, we have to come back to the collation. When the collation starts proper, when the local government officials start reading out the numbers, we'll be able to know the number of vote cast, the number of people who were accredited for the vote. So in Oyo State, the number of PVCs collected is about 2.8 million. But they have 33 local governments. So this is one of the dynamics. So because if you have to compare to Lagos, Lagos has 20 local governments, and the entire process, you may say that maybe it would take so long for them to collate the results here, but Oyo has way lesser number compared to Lagos, where you have 6.2 million eligible voters. So in this particular case, you know that out of the 2.8 million people who collected the PVCs, we've been dealing with a percentage. If we get 50% turnout, that's quite impressive by Nigerian election standard. Victor.
Dari, I mean, you just heard the breaking news, the breaking news update, from River State. So what's the situation, at the Collation Center in Ibadan? What's the security situation? How beefed up, is the area, so to speak?
Of course, I think in most cases, when you go to an INEC office in any part of the country, it's the security situation around there, or the security architecture is always so well designed. So in this particular case as well, almost every part is cordoned off. So you have just one entry into the office. So there are security operatives outside and within the building as well. So again, sometimes you can feel the pulse of the city just to know what is going on, especially when it comes to security. So we've been going around a lot, even after the polls closed. We went around town just to see if there's any sort of apprehension or people agitated for any reason. I don't think we've seen anything that will cause for any worry since we've been here. And again, the security situation around here is a lot calmer than a lot of people would have thought before now, because if you go by the pre-election violence, you would have thought that, okay, Oyo State will be just one of those states where you would be expecting violence to break out. But fortunately, and of course, you have to give that credit to the people of the state as well. They want a peaceful protest, and they have come out, they've comported themselves quite well, voted, and we'll be expecting the results, guys.
Arif, just before I let you go, are there any indication as to when the counting will begin?
The collation, yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier, that an announcement was made earlier that by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, the process will start. Again, we have to also fall back on how collations are done. In this particular case, 33 local governments, and they'll be coming in from different places. So in most cases, they always want them to be, say, 4 or 5 before they kickstart the process. But since we've been here, been on the lookout for the local government, we haven't seen any. They may be around since this process started, but we haven't seen any of it. So that is what I can tell you at this point.
Many thanks for the update. Of course, security is very key, so just stay safe while you're waiting. We're also here waiting as well, and of course, we'd also touch base with you if you have something new to share with us. Thanks again for your reporting.